Welcome everyone. I'm glad that you can join me here on the debut episode of the ToT Fan Perspective. My name is David Morisuti. I'm a writer here at Tip of the Tower, which is the local Toronto site for the Fanside Network. We're starting this new YouTube series as another way to talk about everything related to Toronto sports. So for today's episode, I thought we could talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the NHL Draft Lottery and what this means for them moving forward. There's been a lot going on with the Toronto sports teams recently. You have the Toronto Raptors moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Toronto Blue Jays are off to a tough start to their season. Then you have the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the NHL lottery, giving them the first overall pick. Many people already think the Leafs are going to take Austin Matthews with the first overall pick, and I think the same thing. There's no reason why the Leafs shouldn't take Austin Matthews. But I'm not going to discuss why the Leafs need to take Austin Matthews or why the pick is so important because many of you already know why that is. Instead, I think we should talk about what this team needs to do after they pick Austin Matthews. Other than bringing in Mike Babcock as head coach, probably one of the best decisions that Brandon Shanahan has made since taking over as Leafs president was bringing in Mark Hunter to deal with anything related to the NHL draft, scouting, or talent evaluation. We've already seen Mark Hunter work magic at the NHL draft. Last year, the Leafs probably had one of their best drafts in recent memories. Everyone is always talking about these prospects that the Leafs got in the draft and players that were acquired through trades. While the Toronto Maple Leafs have many picks going into this year's NHL draft, it doesn't mean they're going to use every single one. GM Lou Lamoriello has shown he's not afraid to use draft picks to get more NHL-ready players to improve the roster. Remember back when he was in New Jersey, he traded a top 10 pick to the Vancouver Canucks to get Corey Schneider, who was an established number one goalie. One thing that the Leafs have going for them is flexibility on their roster. There are not many players signed to long-term commitments other than Nazem Kadri and Morgan Rielly. So the team has the chance to add either younger talent or players with some term that could improve this team now and going forward. This now brings me into the whole Steven Stamkos debate. Now, obviously, the NHL draft will be a big part of the Leafs offseason, but probably one of the biggest stories going into the offseason for the Leafs will be determining whether or not the team goes after Steven Stamkos. Until Steven Stamkos re-signs with the Tampa Bay Lightning or he tells them he's not going to re-sign them, the Toronto Maple Leafs should look at themselves as one of the top contenders to land him in free agency. Obviously, many people believe that because the Leafs are a rebuilding team, Stamkos would have no desire to come here. And I don't see why he wouldn't have the desire to come here. He could come and play for a top quality coach in Mike Babcock. The Leafs will have a number one overall pick in Austin Matthews, great talent like William Nylander, Mitch Marner, Morgan Rielly to work with. If he can see that, there should be no reason why the Leafs can't make a strong enough push to sign him. Seeing the Tampa Bay Lightning go through this great playoff run may have helped in their case, but if they're not willing to offer Stamkos his demands for a contract, it could be what pushes them out. Now, does that mean the Leafs will be the top team to get him? Many are saying so, but you don't know if there's going to be another team that will come out of nowhere and offer Stamkos what he wants and be in a better position as a contender. Other than Steven Stamkos, what other things could the Leafs look at? Well, obviously, one area that the Leafs are not really secure in is goaltending. We already see with the AHL playoffs that Garrett Sparks and Antoine Bibeau have been rotating their starts, but nobody has really secured themselves at the number one. Although I may have given the edge to Antoine Bibeau considering he's played the majority of the games against Albany. Does this mean that the Leafs have decided that either Sparks or Bibeau will be good enough to play as the number one goalie for this team? Nobody knows. Nobody even knows whether or not Jonathan Bernier will be here next season. Many believe that he could get traded this summer, or the Leafs will just ride his contract out and trade him at the deadline, or just let him go. The Leafs believe they don't have the solution within the organization for their goaltending. then they could look at other NHL teams who have to make some tough decisions with their goaltenders. We saw that LA had to make a choice of Martin Jones, and they traded him to the San Jose Sharks, and we all know how that's worked for the Sharks so far. One team that is similar is the Anaheim Ducks, who have both Frederik Andersen and John Gibson as options for the Leafs to look at. Now, John Gibson is signed moving forward with Anaheim, so Frederik Andersen looks like a better option. He's played in the playoffs. He's established himself as a number one goalie. He has put up great numbers. So if the Leafs can make a deal work, then there's no reason why the Leafs can't try to bring in a goalie like Frederik Andersen. If you trade for a goalie like Frederik Andersen and then Bebo and Sparks end up developing into the goalies that you want them to be, then you would actually have a good problem. But if you can't make a trade work for Andersen, another route you can go is to bring a goalie in like James Reimer. Reimer, we already know he's a fan favorite. They already had contract negotiations with him before he left for San Jose, so at least have an idea of what he's looking for in free agency. Now, Reimer's value may have dipped a bit since he went to San Jose because he hasn't had a chance to start in the playoffs. So if the Leafs can try to get him at a reasonable deal, you give yourself a chance to be patient with your younger goalies, and we saw that Reimer played well for the Leafs before he was traded. Now, is he an elite number one goalie? Obviously not, because the Leafs would not have traded him if that was the case. But you do have some options moving forward if you can get some short-term solutions to give your younger goalies a chance to develop into the goalies you want them to be. An area that the Leafs definitely need to improve this summer is their blue line. And they got Nikita Zaitsev from the KHL, who should definitely help, and he could be an under-the-radar signing for the Leafs. But is that enough for them to fix their blue line? Well, obviously the Leafs do need experience on the blue line, as they already have Morgan Rielly leading them as a 22-year-old. While the Leafs don't have to overpay to get veteran experience, it's definitely something they have to address. They could do that through trades by trying to trade some of the lower draft picks that they don't really need and get that valued veteran leadership, or they can try to do it through free agency and not give up anything at all. They do have to be careful not to overpay like they did when they brought in Stefan Robidas, but I think this management group will definitely be able to find some quality veteran players. You saw that when they brought in Matt Hellingwick, although Matt Hellingwick wasn't a top two pairing defenseman. Considering he had never played that role before, he actually did a pretty good job. If the Leafs can try to add a veteran player, especially on the blue line, to help young defensemen like Morgan Rielly, Jake Gardiner, Nikita Zaitsev, Connor Carrick, who I think will be a good addition to this team next year, given how he's played in the AHL playoffs, the Leafs could actually have a pretty good blue line and give a chance for younger players like Travis Dermott, Andrew Nielsen, Renat Valiev a chance to develop into the NHL defenseman that you want them to be. And you also still have Scott Harrington, who I think could make the Leafs next season if he's not going through the same injury problems that he was this past season. We know where the Leafs need to upgrade. We know what they need to do this summer. They have a lot of work to do at the NHL draft with all the picks they have if they decide to keep them all. We already know that Austin Matthews will be a big storyline coming into training camp. But one thing they should definitely be looking at when training camp arrives is what they do with Mitch Marner. There's just so much for this Leafs team to look at this summer. It's probably one of the biggest summers in this rebuild, although we could probably say that with every summer. But given how much space they have with their cap space moving forward, all the players that could be available to them or they could try to get from other teams, this could be a very, very important offseason for this management group. I'd like to thank you for joining me on the debut episode. I had a lot of fun doing this. I hope you had fun watching. If you have any comments or suggestions for the next video, please let me know. Please like it if you liked the video. Check out our Twitter and Facebook page. Also check out tipofthetower.com for the latest episodes of the ToT cast, where we're talking more about the Toronto Raptors. And I look forward to talking about the Toronto Raptors playoffs and the Toronto Blue Jays seasons in the next few videos, so please stay tuned.